Thank you so much for that. And sports is, frankly, not my area of expertise. It is political economics, but like many of us, I do watch it when I need a break from the noise that we are surrounded with in this very unstable world. And I think a lot of people around the world are watching, because I was looking up the numbers. This year has been very sporty for me. Please don't ask why. I have been pulled into so many conversations with some amazing global teams. And the numbers of the revenues, and let's be frank, it's about money at the end of the day when we talk about empowering women. Money backs it, it happens. Global revenues for women's sports are projected to reach $2.35 billion this year. If you look at the numbers about 3 years ago, we started from a baseline, I think, in 2022 of $692 million globally. So the jump has been significant. If you look at the sports that we are seeing success in, everyone talks about football, but it's actually basketball, women's basketball, that is leading global revenues. Football follows next, soccer to all our American friends here. About 38% of global revenues are from football, okay, soccer. And then the rest of the world is interestingly interested in cricket, my birth country's passionate love affair with it, and volleyball. North America driving all of the growth, Europe following close behind with 18% of all revenue share, and then the rest of the world is slowly but surely catching up. Now, these are numbers very, very specific to women's sports, and isn't that interesting that right after COVID, everyone is suddenly interested in women's teams? And I love that fact, but the question is, are we hiding and looking for an escape route? And if that is an escape route, how do we make sure that we capitalize on this and it doesn't become a blip in the system? So Stephanie, let me start with asking you a simple question. Women's sports, you tell young women how to be successful, capitalize on the market value that they have. What are the trend changes that you've been seeing in the last 3 to 4 years that makes you confident that this is not a blip that is going to disappear as soon as the noise is not conducive to the conversation?
Absolutely. And we really are seeing this kind of cultural and generational inflection point when it comes to women's sports, and it's due to a couple of things. In 2021 is when the law changed such that college athletes can capitalize on their name, image, and likeness, which is called NIL. Some of you may be familiar. And before that, college athletes weren't able to monetize their brand, their personal social media, their content creation. And so when that changed, that really changed the game for everyone. It changed the game for student athletes, and it changed the game for brands as well. And so that was 2021. That was when we were kind of in COVID. Schools were shut down. Coming out of that is when we've seen this incredible rush to invest in women's sports, and especially at an earlier and earlier level. And, we talk about how everything is about the money at the end of the day. And what we're seeing is that brands are waking up to the power and the potential in this moment. And so brands are now able to invest in athletes and women athletes at an earlier stage at a much larger scale. And they're seeing incredible results coming out of that. And so the ROI is there from a marketing perspective. We work with unbelievable mission-driven brands like e.l.f., like Dove, like CoverGirl, that recognize this power, and it is then reinforced by the marketing results that they're seeing.
Does it worry you at all that brands can be fickle if an issue arises, and then they go, actually, it looked like the revenue growth was going to be amazing, but now we're kind of not sure because the political winds are changing, so maybe we pull out. Is it here to stay from all of the folks that you're talking to, that they literally are looking at it from a 10 to 20 year time horizon rather than the next maybe 4 seasons?
Yeah, I certainly think so. Obviously, time will tell. We're seeing that in order to reach and resonate with the next generation, you have to be responsive to what they are telling you. And we are hearing loud and clear from young people and from young women that they care about women's sports. Both young men and young women are watching women's sports. They're viewing women's sports at the college level and the professional level. And brands really have no choice but to react to what they're hearing from the younger community. And so that gives me a lot of confidence. I also, a woman that I look up to, Melody Hobson, I just heard her speak at a conference a couple weeks ago. And she said that she thinks one of the best investments anyone can make right now is to invest in women's sports teams. And so if Melody Hobson says it as investment advice, then I'll take it.
I know, I would take her word for where to
too.
put the money.
Yeah.
Liz, this is the question. Is it something that you believe in the trend growth? Because I always worry when a chart or a graph spikes the way it has since 2022 and people start selling it. But we know it's more complicated than that. We've got rights issues, we've got all kinds of things that circulate within that sphere. Where do you come down on this?
So where I come down is that everything's about storytelling. And I think it's understanding how to tell the story, going beyond the moral imperative, and really looking at the business case. And I think that's where we really need to spend time to be able to connect our value and the sports figures' value to the bottom line of the companies that they're trying to engage. And so if we can continually make that case, whether it's through our social media and the way that we build our brands and the way that we're communicating with the brands, I think then we can become part of their ongoing sort of investment efforts, and partnership efforts. But I think that if we really focus on the rights issue, and we know where I live, that's just not where you want to be right now. And if you can really continue to demonstrate how investing in women's sports is going to be good for the bottom line on an ongoing basis, and it's actually converting, then there's no reason for us to think of it as just a blip, but really as an ongoing value to these companies.
When you're talking to some of the women that you do and the groups that you do, what are the biggest concerns they have? Because it's very exciting when everyone gets excited about, I don't know, the Lionesses or the basketball teams in the WNBA or the Indian cricket team or the rugby folks who are doing amazing things out of Ireland. What are the big concerns that they come to you with, and you tell them, how to keep the eye on the ball?
Sure. So I think, I don't know if Elise Nelson is here, but I mean, I've done a lot of training for Vital Voices and through USAID, Women in African Power, and lots of different groups with women. And what I found is that whenever we're talking about our work and we're talking about our own personal brands, we tend to focus on the moral imperative of investing in women. But in fact, we need to be able to understand that we create value, right, for the bottom line. And if we can really understand how to convey that. So for instance, I was working with a group and they kept focusing on there isn't enough representation of women in this particular space. And so, companies need to make sure that they support us. I'm like, why? You need to give them a reason why, right? And because everyone is about what's in it for me. So with respect to anything, you really need to be able to convey what's in it for whoever you're trying to engage with, whether it's getting additional pay, it's obtaining some kind of sponsorship, and partnerships and the like. And so I think if we can just get better at storytelling, we can really do a great job, and data-backed storytelling. And that's where the AI piece of it comes in, but I'll let you go on and we'll come back
to that because I'm always fascinated how AI can help the cause rather than us sitting there fearing it. So let me ask you, Alison, you are also the Irish government spokesperson for sports. Amazing stuff happening out of Ireland when it comes to women's sports. The question again comes back to the storytelling. You are also a former TV anchor. You know how to do the storytelling, which is excellent news for Ireland. At some point, you're also a politician. Sports is becoming as tenuous in terms of the storytelling as any other profession or any other gendered issue. How do you navigate supporting this growth that we're seeing in women's sport without falling into the traps that are being set for us? I'm talking about transgender athletes. That entire debate is toxic at this point. We can't have conversations anymore. How do you support, as a government, women's sports when it is a pit that you can fall very quickly down?
I'll address that in a moment, but I just feel it would be remiss of me today. I'm very, very proud to be representing Ireland here today. We've been accused of punching above our weight, a bit like Iceland, but today we are inaugurating our third female president, Catherine Connolly. I'm very sorry to be missing the event, but at the same time, where else would I be? But of course, we're going to have our very first female president out of three, Mary Robinson, here this afternoon, so a great honour. But you asked me, Maitri, about approaching it as a politician. And I suppose a lot of it is listening to the groups and letting them lead the way so that we can provide policy and legislation. We have, I suppose, an umbrella way of looking at it. It's representation, it's remuneration, and it's respect. Representation because every single young girl should be able to play the sport that she chooses to play at whatever level. And there needs to be women at every table. At a governing level. So that's one of the tenets we'd use. The remuneration, we have to make sure that women are earning the same amount of money as their male counterparts in whatever sport they choose. And whether that comes down to sponsorship, that should be a separate issue. It should be that they're earning the same amount. And of course, the respect that they're getting the same facilities. We're talking about a level playing field here. Facilities, funding, sponsorship, it needs to be a level playing field. So across the years, we have really made inroads. The likes of the FAI, which is the Football Association of Ireland, have in 2021 brought in a policy that their female players are paid the same as their male players, which is very important. And again, the representation is also there. Of course, they had to bring the male players' wages down in order for the women to come up. I would have preferred if the women's wages had come up to the original amount, but we'll take our little wins. And the representation as well, I must refer to my colleague in the Irish government, Joanna Byrne, who is here with us today, because she was the very first chairperson of a League of Ireland football team. It happens to be Drogheda United, which is where we're both from. So I think that we need to see more of that representation. And then, of course, we have other areas like integration. We have Gaelic games in Ireland, which is very specific to Ireland. And there are many umbrella groups under that. There are the clubs, there are different games like ladies Gaelic football and camogie, which is very similar to, say, hockey. And at the end of next year, we're currently working through it, making that all come under one umbrella group, GAA integration. And that will mean that it'll have to be fair for the women players. There will have to be wider conversations amongst clubs. And this is at a grassroots level, which it can be very difficult sometimes to bring in everybody to talk about the same thing. But I think it's really vital that the government gets involved and listens to the organisations.
And not get into the nitty-gritty politics of it, perhaps. Maybe is that the advice? Don't get into or don't allow for the politicization of sports so that women's sports can grow?
Well, no, I think it is beholden to us to become involved because we're the ones who can affect that change. It's written into our programme for government that we will bring about this change and look for equality in women's sports. And we have the Sports Council of Ireland, Sports Ireland, who have got a very special policy looking at how the equality can be brought into women's sports. So I do feel that we have to get involved. It's not always popular, and other opposition parties or other parties will have their own ideas. But when you're in government and you put it into your programme for government, we have that 3 or 4 years to make every one of those count.
I mean, but let's come back to the money question, because money is always great, but there's also this question mark at this point of how much sports washing is going on, because the money is coming in from places which you can ask a few questions. As a journalist, I would ask, why are we getting money from X country, which is putting money into women's sports at this point, when we know the track records of certain governments around the world? How worried are you about sports washing and the funding from sports washing, and whether that's an attempt to either hold us back in the long run, or is there a smart way of using the money, saying, hey, if you want to give it to us, we'll take it and then we'll run with it?
That's it. I mean, I think if you have a specific objective, right? Do you actually know where all the I'm not saying to be unethical. That's not even what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, if it's going to move the needle and it passes a certain bar, I think you should go ahead and move forward with it, because the reality is that we want to grow this, right? And so I think that we want to consider that. But before we talk about that, I want us to consider something. The one industry, or one of the few industries where women actually outpace men in earnings, is in the modeling industry. And why is that? think about that. What can we learn from that? It's because they're able to sell more covers, more magazines or covers. They're able to sell more clothing and the like. And so what can we learn from them to be able to apply to this particular context? Because I love to be able to apply from different sectors. So I just want to bring that up, and I want to hear what you think about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I was going to mention something along those lines, which is that now that we're seeing the kind of brand and sponsorship world open up to women's sports, and we're talking about storytelling, as you said, women are historically much better at storytelling, at content creation, at reaching an audience in that way. And so you go from an industry that's kind of male-dominated, or maybe more catered towards the way men have shown up in the world, to something where now the conversation is moving online, it's moving to TikTok, it's moving to Instagram. That's a space where women are excelling. One thing we're seeing is that it has been pretty sudden. It was a long time to come, but it has now been pretty sudden that a spotlight has been thrust on women's sports and on a much larger group of women athletes than ever before, rather than just the top couple. And so one thing we think about a lot is how do we equip women athletes to be kind of set up for success in this world where all of a sudden they have this spotlight on them for the first time. They're used to doing everything they need to do to compete and be the best possible athlete and player they can be at their sport. They're not necessarily equipped to how do you work with brands? How do you be an influencer? How do you manage your own TikTok? And so one thing that we've been doing and working with partners to do is to kind of flood and rush resources into that system to make sure that all of this, attention that is so deserved, women athletes are prepared to meet this moment and capitalize on it as best they can.
If you didn't need any additional pressure on either a track or a field, now you need to be an Instagram superstar or a TikTok superstar to attract the money. At some point, government needs to step in to support athletes who don't reach that 1%.
That's exactly it. And
how do you do that?
From a government point of view, we obviously invest tens of millions into our sports every year. And that's right across the board. We're not going to differentiate who gets that money. We have a sports capital funding program. It's $500,000 and we're talking from local sports teams, not just national teams. They get a national sport. They get a separate issue. It's never going to be enough. I know that. And clubs right across Ireland have got to do their own fundraising, etc. But we'd love to have one for everybody in the audience, but we would prefer that they wouldn't turn to the likes of outside funding, which can be, unfortunately, spurious.
It's spurious. So we have a couple of minutes left, so I want to get to a really critical question. Not everyone can access a Stephanie. Not everyone around the world who is interested, loves sports as a woman, has access to infrastructure and lives in a developed country. At some point, how can we use technology, Liz? And I'm going to start with you, to help get young women in different parts. The one good thing about social media is it has democratized the storytelling. How can
on certain platforms? Yes.
True. Yeah. How can we use data, artificial intelligence, beyond just the chatbots and LLMs? How can we use all of this to kind of elevate sportswomen in different parts of the world? What's one thing people can take back tonight or today and say, we can do this in our countries?
Right. I mean, I think definitely social media became the great equalizer in terms of being able to tell your story and to connect with new audiences and the like. So I think that just starting with that, but from that, it's not just good enough to engage. It's important to be able to get the analytics. So the analytics crunched through an LLM, in certain ways, enables you to be able to make the case for why you should receive funding and the like. But I think that anybody can literally use. I mean, you can use Google Gemini if you have a Google account. You don't necessarily have to pay $20 a month for ChatGPT or whatever it may be. And I think that we really want to make sure that everyone has the ability to use these tools so they can enhance their storytelling. And let me explain what I mean by that. I don't look at AI and I teach this. I've trained 10,000 people over the last 2 years on how to access AI and integrate it into their careers and their businesses. And my whole thing is that you need to figure out who you're trying to communicate to and the story you're trying to tell. And we don't all have to be natural storytellers, but if we have the data to back up whatever it is that we're trying to convey, and anyone can have that data and have the ability to crunch that data, then all of a sudden you have a narrative that then enables you to create content that's compelling to bring in more people. It enables you to be able to create proposals and engage with the people that you want support from, irrespective of where you are in the world. And I think that I know that AI is very controversial, but I do believe that right now it's still an equalizer if you have access to technology, and most people have phones, smartphones. So I think that's important to underscore. And women in this audience, please go ahead and learn how to use AI. It's not about the technology, it's the access that it unlocks for everybody to be able to reach their goals, right? As an enhancement for your natural talents. It's a great way to tell stories, it's a great way to be able to be more productive and the like.
And we all want to be more productive and have impact. I know we're out of time, but one sentence, action item that we can walk away with, since that is the focus.
Go to a university or a college women's sports game sometime this fall. Just go and bring men with you.
Oh, that's a good one.
And honestly, just join in. If you feel like you want to join a team, do. It doesn't have to be male, female, just go for it, because the health benefits are incredible, the mental health benefits are incredible, and I'll try and find the money to support you.
We love that answer, because ending it on the money is the perfect way to do it. We all know what we have to do. Thank you, ladies. We're going to either join a team or watch a team to make sure this happens. Thank you again.
Thank you.